Rebecca Ward never imagined how drastically her life could change in a single day. She was a struggling single mom of two, juggling long shifts at the diners in Atlanta just to keep the lights on. Every morning she woke up hoping for a miracle, but she never dreamed one would arrive in the form of a strange, unmarked letter. On a drizzly autumn afternoon, she found it buried in a pile of overdue bills, a mysterious envelope containing a clue that would unravel a decades-old secret. Little did she know, this cryptic message would lead her to a hidden fortune and unimaginable drama. Rebecca Ward was 32 years old, with streaks of silver quietly settling into her once gleaming chestnut hair. She lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment in a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia. Stubborn paint peeled from the window frames. The plumbing rattled whenever the water was turned on. In the corner of the living room, a hand-me-down sofa sagged from years of wear. Yet, despite the meager surroundings, Rebecca tried to fill the small space with warmth. Photographs of her two children, Lily and Marcus, were taped to the fridge and lined along the dusty mantel. Life had been an uphill climb since her ex-husband, Patrick Jennings, left without warning 3 years prior. The loneliness wasn't even the worst part. It was the shame of being unable to provide the sort of life her children deserved. She worked tirelessly at Roscoe's Diner, picking up double shifts whenever possible. Her older child, Lily, was 8, a bright, imaginative soul who constantly asked if her daddy would ever come back. The younger one, Marcus, was 5 and had never really known a stable father figure. To them, Rebecca was the world, but she felt she was barely scraping by. On a blustery fall day, Rebecca returned from her early morning shift to find the mailbox stuffed with bills. Sighing, she fished them out, her heart sinking with each envelope. She recognized the electric bill, the rent notice, and the dreaded phone bill. But there was one letter that didn't fit any familiar template. It was a simple white envelope with no return address, and her name typed across the front, Rebecca Ward. Thinking it might be some advertisement, or worse, a scam, she opened it carelessly, ready to toss it once she confirmed it was junk. Instead, she was greeted with a single typed sheet. Miss Ward, if you wish to learn the truth about your late Aunt Meredith and what she's left behind, come to 419 Barton Street at noon this Friday. The door will be unlocked. Enter and you'll find the answers you seek, a friend. Rebecca's brow furrowed. Aunt Meredith? Her mother's sister had passed away over a decade ago. They had never been particularly close. In fact, she remembered Aunt Meredith only as a stern woman with a regal posture, the type who wore pearls even on a trip to the grocery store. She'd passed suddenly, leaving no will, or so the family believed. To mention what she's left behind now, after so many years, made no sense. Questions swirled. Who sent this letter? Why now? And 419 Barton Street. That address was in an affluent district of the city, not a typical place where any friend of hers would live. She set the letter aside and went about her day, but it weighed heavily on her mind. Curiosity gnawed at her, and by Friday morning she decided to find out if this was some elaborate hoax or a genuine message from someone who knew her aunt. Lily, who had the day off from school, stayed with a neighbor who watched Marcus as well, and at exactly 11:30, Rebecca hopped on the bus into the city. Traffic was snarled as usual, and her stomach twisted in knots by the time she arrived at the corner of Barton Street. Upmarket brownstones lined the road, all neatly tended with trimmed hedges and ornate wrought-iron gates. She checked the house numbers until she spotted 419. It was a handsome brick townhouse with tall windows. A small brass plate by the door read Harrington and Associates. Rebecca's confusion grew. Was this a law firm? She tried the door. It was unlocked, exactly as promised. Stepping in, She found herself in a quiet foyer. The faint smell of polished wood and old books hung in the air. "Hello?" she called, voice echoing in the hushed space. "Is anybody here?" At first, silence was her only reply. Then, a tall man with peppered hair and wire-rimmed glasses appeared from a side corridor. He wore a charcoal grey suit that fit too well to be anything off the rack. He studied her for a moment, then offered a tight-lipped smile. "Rebecca Ward, one presume?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. One, I got a letter." He inclined his head politely. "I'm Charles Harrington, attorney. Why don't we talk in my office?" His office was a grand space with walnut paneling and a large oak desk, behind which towered a bookshelf filled with thick legal volumes. Rebecca felt a twinge of intimidation. Clearly, whoever ran this place was quite successful. Charles gestured for her to sit. "Thank you for coming. I sent you that letter because I've recently uncovered information regarding your Aunt Meredith's estate." Rebecca frowned. "Estate? My aunt died ages ago. My family never received anything. We assumed she left no will." Charles cleared his throat. "That's where things get interesting. Your aunt did leave a will, yet it was hidden within documents belonging to a certain Henry Masterson. Mr. Masterson's estate came under my review only recently, and as I was sifting through his files, I discovered your aunt's last testament. It specifically names you as a beneficiary." Rebecca's heart skipped a beat. "I'm not sure I understand." Charles opened a file on his desk, revealing several aged legal documents. He slid one toward her. "Here is a copy of the will. Your aunt left instructions that a sum of money and a particular piece of property be entrusted to you upon Mr. Masterson's passing." She stared at the yellowed pages. "Who is Henry Masterson, and why was Aunt Meredith's will with him?" "That is a complicated matter," Charles replied. "He was an extremely private man. My best guess is that they were acquaintances or had some deeper connection. Without going into details that remain unclear, it appears Mr. Masterson kept your aunt's affairs under his personal supervision." Rebecca's eyes flickered with disbelief. She had never heard of a Henry Masterson, but here was a sealed document referencing a trust. "What property did she leave me?" Charles leaned back in his chair. "A small cottage in Willow Creek, about an hour north of Atlanta. It's nestled on a piece of land known to have some local historical value." He slid another folder to her. "These are directions and a property deed. You own it, Miss Ward. And there is a monetary sum as well, though not as large as one might expect from real estate transactions these days. $15,000. 15,000. Rebecca's breath caught. It was no fortune, but for her, it might as well have been gold bars. It could pay off her overdue bills, maybe put down a deposit on a safer apartment. But her excitement was tempered by caution. This entire scenario seemed surreal. Why? Why now? Charles folded his hands. "All I can tell you is that the delay results from the secrecy Henry Masterson insisted upon regarding his own dealings. After his recent death, I was sorting through his personal archives when I stumbled upon your aunt's will. He had apparently hidden it away, possibly for reasons known only to him. My job is to ensure Aunt Meredith's final wishes are carried out. As for your question, why now? The simplest answer is because we finally uncovered it." Rebecca found herself trembling. Life had thrown curveballs at her, but never something like this. "So, that's it?" she asked. "Just sign some papers, and it's mine?" Charles smiled politely. "Yes, but I do advise you to see the property in person. There's more in that cottage than meets the eye, and if you have any interest in selling it, I can certainly assist with that process." She agreed, half in a daze, and left the law office clutching the files. Her head buzzed with unanswered questions. Why had Aunt Meredith never mentioned this place? Who was Henry Masterson, and why keep the will hidden so long? Above all, how would this new property change her life? She felt a flutter of cautious hope. That weekend, she convinced her neighbor to watch Lily and Marcus, again repaying her with some leftover grocery money, and borrowed an old hatchback from a co-worker who offered to help. She drove north out of Atlanta, following the directions in Charles's folder. The scenery shifted from urban bustle to rolling farmland, then patches of quiet forest. After an hour, she reached Willow Creek, an old-fashioned town with a single blinking traffic light, a general store, and a rickety library. The directions guided her onto a gravel road that snaked through tall pines. Eventually, she turned onto a narrow lane lined by ancient oak trees whose branches arched overhead, forming a canopy. At the end stood a small ivy-draped cottage. Its roof was mossy and the front porch sagged slightly, but it was quaint in a storybook way, with shutters that looked like they once had bright red paint and a carved wooden front door. Heart. Thudding, Rebecca climbed out of the car. A hush lay over the property, broken only by the chatter of birds. She approached the door, key in hand, one of the few items Charles had provided. The lock turned with difficulty, but it opened. Inside, dust motes floated in the stale air. The cottage had a single living area with a stone fireplace, a tiny kitchen with outdated appliances, and a hallway leading to 2 bedrooms. Old furniture, draped in sheets, filled the rooms like ghosts. Stepping carefully, she moved from room to room, not entirely sure what she was looking for. Perhaps a sign from Aunt Meredith. She discovered random photographs. One depicted her mother as a teenager, perched on a fence next to a woman who must have been Meredith, only younger. With a warm smile, she found a worn trunk in the bedroom closet. Inside were letters from unknown senders, all to Aunt Meredith. Most were postmarked from locations across the country: New York, Chicago, Dallas. They referenced vague arrangements and financial obligations. It was puzzling. Then she found a locked metal box hidden behind a false panel in the trunk. The key was nowhere in sight. She carried it to the kitchen, rummaged through drawers until she found an old screwdriver. With effort, she pried the lock. The box popped open to reveal a stack of yellowed papers, a few black and white photos, and a large envelope marked Rebecca. Her pulse quickened. She opened the envelope. Inside was a typewritten letter, dated the year before Aunt Meredith's death. "My dearest Rebecca, I always believed you had the spirit to carve your own path, even when life tested you. You're reading this because circumstances have brought you to Willow Creek. I wish I could be there with you, but perhaps in another life we'll meet again." You must be wondering about Henry Masterson. Our families were connected by secrets older than you can imagine, secrets that I carried for many years. Henry was a dear friend who safeguarded my affairs, protecting me from those who sought to manipulate and exploit what I possessed. Beneath the floorboard by the fireplace, you'll find something that once belonged to your grandmother, a valuable heirloom that has been in our family for generations. Whether it's an antique artifact or simply a symbol of legacy, I hope it provides some security and comfort for you and yours. Please remember, family is more than blood. It is the love and memories we nurture. I may not have shown my affection often, but I loved you as my own. May this inheritance ease your burdens. With all my love, Aunt Meredith. Rebecca's throat tightened. She never imagined her frosty aunt capable of such warmth. Curiosity flared at the mention of an heirloom beneath the fireplace floorboard. Placing the letter aside, she rushed into the living area, scanning the floor. The fireplace stones were stained with ash, the floor planks scuffed with age. She grabbed a flashlight and gently tapped along the boards. Sure enough, a hollow sound emerged near the hearth. Using the same screwdriver, she pried up a loose plank. Nestled beneath was a small, cloth-wrapped bundle. She eased it out and unwrapped it carefully. Inside, She discovered an ornately carved wooden box, no bigger than a jewelry case. The hinged lid opened to reveal an exquisite brooch inlaid with shimmering stones, rubies, perhaps, or garnets. The metal glinted with an antique patina etched with a family crest she didn't recognize. Despite a bit of tarnish, it was stunning, obviously old-world craftsmanship. A breath of awe escaped her lips. If this piece was genuine, it might be worth more than the 15,000. Maybe even more than the cottage itself. She was unsure, but her excitement soared. For a moment, she imagined paying off all her debts, moving the kids to a decent neighborhood, finally giving Lily and Marcus the life they deserved. Yet a swirl of questions remained. Why had Aunt Meredith been so secretive? What was the connection to Henry Masterson? And who might have been searching for this heirloom if it had to be hidden so thoroughly? Her uncertainties only multiplied as she explored the rest of the cottage. In the bedroom nightstand, she found a cryptic note in a different handwriting. M. Thomas Harrington suspects I've hidden your possessions. Watch your back, he'll do anything to secure Masterson's legacy. S. J. Thomas Harrington. The name Harrington struck her. Charles Harrington, the attorney at 419 Barton Street. Was he related to a Thomas Harrington? She remembered the brass plaque, Harrington and Associates. Was Charles simply a front for something more nefarious? Unease settled in her stomach. She decided to keep the heirloom's discovery to herself for the moment. If someone else was looking for it, even going as far as scouring Aunt Meredith's papers, Rebecca needed to be cautious. She placed the brooch and letter back in the metal box, locked it inside her car's trunk, then returned home at dusk, mind racing with the possibilities. Over the next week, she wrestled with how to proceed. She considered seeking an appraiser to evaluate the brooch, but she feared drawing attention to it. Meanwhile, Charles Harrington kept calling, asking if she'd decided on a property sale. She made excuses, claiming she needed more time. One afternoon, after finishing her shift at the diner, Rebecca realized she was being followed. A tall, dark-haired man lurked near the exit, pretending to scroll on his phone whenever she glanced over. Her blood chilled. Had Thomas Harrington, whoever he was, put someone on her trail? She rushed to the bus stop, heart pounding, and only relaxed when the bus pulled away, leaving the man behind. That night, she confided in her close friend and co-worker, Darlene Mitchell. Darlene was older, a grandmotherly figure who'd worked at Roscoe's for decades. Rebecca showed her the letter from Aunt Meredith and the brooch. Darlene's eyes widened. She whispered, "Honey, that's no costume jewelry. You need to talk to someone you trust, maybe an honest antiques dealer. But be careful. Something that fancy might attract the wrong kind of folks." Taking her advice, Rebecca scheduled a discreet appointment with an appraiser recommended by Darlene's cousin, who ran a small pawn shop. The appraiser, a soft-spoken woman named Amanda Lee, examined the piece in a back room of the shop. After nearly an hour, Amanda emerged, face pale with amazement. "Miss Ward, this is a genuine 17th century European brooch, probably French or Spanish in origin. The stones are real rubies, and the metal appears to be platinum mixed with gold. Based on the craftsmanship and condition, I'd estimate it could fetch anywhere from $100,000 to over $200,000 at auction, possibly more if there's significant provenance behind it." Rebecca's breath caught in her throat. $100,000, or even $200,000. That was a staggering sum for someone who scraped by day after day. She felt dizzy. This single piece of jewelry could change her and her children's lives forever. But Amanda's next words sobered her. "Be cautious about who you tell. Something like this doesn't just have monetary value, it might be historically significant. That can bring out unscrupulous people who do anything to get their hands on it." The following days were a blur of anxiety. Rebecca weighed her options. She could try to sell the brooch discreetly, But then there was the mysterious note mentioning Thomas Harrington. Was he connected to Charles? She decided to search for any mention of Thomas Harrington online. Using the public library's old computer, she discovered that Thomas Harrington was indeed Charles's father, a powerful real estate magnate rumored to be involved in hush-hush deals around the city. There were also rumors of him being an illegitimate son of none other than Henry Masterson. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces began to fit. If Henry Masterson had fathered Thomas Harrington, that might explain the tie to Meredith's will. Perhaps Aunt Meredith's estate was deeply entangled with the Masterson fortune. And if there was something of great value like that centuries-old brooch, Thomas might believe it was rightfully his. Late one evening, Lily had just gone to bed, and Marcus was half asleep on the sofa, when a heavy knock sounded at the apartment door. Fear prickled Rebecca's skin. She peered through the peephole. Charles Harrington stood outside, his expression grim. She reluctantly opened the door, praying this wouldn't escalate. "Miss Ward, one apologize for coming unannounced," he began. "May I come in?" She stepped aside, her heart racing. He entered, taking in the cramped apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the stack of bills on the table. He paused, as though choosing his words carefully. "Rebecca, I understand you visited the cottage and discovered something valuable. Please understand. I'm only here to help you, but we must act quickly." Anger flared within her. "And how do you know what I discovered?" His gaze faltered. "My father, Thomas Harrington, has been searching for that piece for decades. He believes it's part of the Masterson family inheritance. It was rumored that Henry Masterson entrusted it to your aunt. My father is convinced it belongs to him, and he will stop at nothing to get it back." She swallowed hard. "So you've been spying on me?" Charles shook his head vigorously. "I only recently learned of his activities. I swear I'm not your enemy. I don't share his obsession, nor do I condone his methods. But you need to be careful. If you try to sell that brooch in the open market, my father will find out immediately. He has connections everywhere." Rebecca's mind spun. "But the will states it belongs to me. My aunt clearly wanted me to have it. That won't stop Thomas. He'll argue that any Masterson family artifact belongs to the Masterson Harrington estate. He has lawyers, investigators, and more resources than you can imagine." Rebecca's eyes stung with tears of frustration and fear. "So what am I supposed to do?" Charles exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Let me help. I know an off-market collector who might buy it discreetly. He'll pay well, but he'll want proof of authenticity, and will have to handle the transaction carefully, so my father can't trace it. Once it's sold, you can move your family somewhere safer, maybe even start a new life." Every cell in her body wanted to run, to hide, to protect her children. Yet part of her didn't fully trust Charles. He was a Harrington after all. "And what do you get out of this?" she asked, arms folded. He met her eyes with an intensity that startled her. "Redemption. I've stood in my father's shadow for too long, turning a blind eye to how he wields power. If I can help you and thwart his plan to claim everything, it'll be my way of finally doing the right thing." Torn and terrified, Rebecca asked him to leave, needing time to think. That night, she barely slept. Lily had a nightmare about a stranger coming to take them away, and the innocence of her daughter's fears mirrored Rebecca's own real-life anxieties. By morning, she decided she had to do something. The only other option was to keep the brooch forever hidden and continue living in fear. She arranged to meet Charles at a small cafe on the other side of town. They sat in a corner booth, the hum of conversation around them a protective cloak. She agreed to let him broker a private sale, but only if she could remain anonymous and only if she got enough money to relocate. Charles nodded solemnly. "When?" she asked quietly. He pulled out a small notebook. "Tomorrow night, after business hours. Bring the brooch to my office at 8 p.m. I'll have the buyer there. We'll sign an off-the-record agreement. You'll walk away with a cashier's check, no questions asked. Her heart hammered. Everything was moving so fast. But she saw no better path. She would do anything to secure her children's future. The next 24 hours crawled by. She hid the brooch inside an old stuffed teddy bear in her closet, praying no one would find it if they ransacked her place. She asked Darlene to watch Lily and Marcus while she went to the meeting. Darlene gave her a bear hug, whispering, "You be safe, honey." At exactly 7:45 p.m., Rebecca arrived at 419 Barton Street, the same brownstone where this entire saga began. The door was locked this time, so she pressed the buzzer. Charles answered, ushering her into a softly lit conference room. Across the sleek mahogany table sat an older man with hawkish features and silver hair combed back. He introduced himself simply as Mr. Sullivan, a private collector. He inspected the brooch under a jeweler's loupe, a faint flicker of awe in his eyes. "Spectacular," he murmured, nodding approvingly. He then turned to Charles, who handed over documents. Sullivan signed them, and at Charles's direction, Rebecca also scribbled her name. Sullivan then handed her a crisp, sealed envelope, her payment. She reached for it, hand trembling. This was the moment everything would change, for better or worse. But before she could slip the envelope into her purse, a thunderous crash sounded in the hallway. The door burst open, and an imposing figure stormed in, Thomas Harrington. He was tall, with a hardened face and a glare that could cut steel. Behind him were two other men, presumably security or hired muscle. Thomas's eyes blazed with rage. The moment he saw the brooch on the table, "What is this?" he roared, voice echoing against the polished walls. "A secret sale? Behind my back?" Charles leapt to his feet. "Father, calm down. We can discuss this, discuss. Don't you realize the ramifications, boy?" Thomas advanced on Rebecca, seething. "That artifact is Masterson property. You have no right to sell it." Rebecca shrank back. She clutched the envelope with the check, but fear anchored her feet. "I have a will. It's mine, left to me by my aunt," she stammered. Thomas's lip curled. "A fraud. And even if it's genuine, I have grounds to challenge it. Hand it over." He lunged for the brooch, but Charles intercepted him, struggling to restrain his father. "Mr. Sullivan," alarmed, scooped up the brooch, bungled it into a velvet pouch, and tried to back away. One of Thomas's men blocked him, yanking the pouch from his grip. Chaos erupted. Charles tried to reason with his father, explaining that the will was legitimate, that this was an independent transaction. Thomas refused to listen, hollering about how the Masterson fortune belonged to the Harringtons by birthright, and how Aunt Meredith had no claim. Suddenly, police sirens shrieked outside. Rebecca's eyes widened in disbelief. Did someone call the cops? She wondered if an alarm had been tripped or a neighbor reported the commotion. Within seconds, two officers stormed in, guns drawn, commanding everyone to freeze. In the confusion, Thomas's men backed away, dropping the velvet pouch. Charles quickly grabbed it. The officers demanded explanations. Charles, swallowing his pride, told the truth that a private sale was taking place, but the property in question was contested. Thomas insisted the brooch was stolen. Rebecca, trembling, tried to show them her aunt's will. Mr. Sullivan cowered by the wall, disclaiming any part in the dispute. Eventually, a higher-ranking detective arrived. After hearing partial accounts, he declared that the item would be placed in police custody until the rightful ownership was determined by a court. Thomas Harrington's fury was palpable, but he couldn't overpower the law. Charles, looking deflated, quietly agreed, knowing that at least the brooch would be protected from immediate theft. Rebecca felt numb. Her dream of walking away tonight with a secure future evaporated. The police escorted them all to the station to give statements. She was there until midnight, frightened and exhausted. Charles assured her that, with a valid will and testimony, she had a strong legal claim. But a legal battle lay ahead, and Thomas's resources were immense. Returning home in tears, she quietly let herself into the apartment. Lily and Marcus were asleep in Darlene's makeshift bed in the living room. Rebecca sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. She had been so close to freedom, only to have it ripped away. In the following weeks, the police kept the brooch in evidence. An investigative hearing ensued. Lawyers representing Thomas Harrington claimed the item was part of the Masterson estate, while Charles served as Rebecca's attorney, arguing that Aunt Meredith's will superseded any Masterson claim. Tensions soared. The media even got wind of the scandal articles in local papers and a brief segment on an Atlanta TV station about the $1 million brooch. For Rebecca, the stress was unbearable. She fielded phone calls from reporters, endured sneers from co-workers who heard wild rumors about her hidden fortune, and had to reassure Lily that everything would be okay. More than once, she considered dropping the claim altogether, just to regain her peace. But she remembered Aunt Meredith's words, "I hope it provides security and comfort for you and yours." She realized that if she let Harrington bully her out of this inheritance, she'd be dooming her children to continue the cycle of poverty and fear. Charles, true to his word, fought tooth and nail in the legal arena. Over time, cracks in Thomas Harrington's arguments appeared. Documents revealed that Henry Masterson had specifically entrusted the piece to Meredith long before his death. The final blow came when a letter surfaced, presumably from the stash of Meredith's old correspondence, signed by Henry Masterson himself. "I, Henry Masterson, do hereby relinquish any claim I have upon the relic in possession of Meredith Ward. I entrust her judgment to see that it passes into the right hands when the time is proper." This letter, authenticated by handwriting experts, proved that Masterson had gifted the artifact to Aunt Meredith free and clear. The court had little choice but to uphold the bequeathal to Rebecca. The day the judge ruled in her favor was overcast and humid, the sky ready to break into a summer storm. Rebecca stood in the courthouse corridor, Charles at her side, tears glistening in her eyes. She won. The brooch was officially hers. Thomas Harrington, outraged, stomped out of the courtroom without a word. A few weeks later, she retrieved the brooch from the police evidence room. Charles recommended a reputable private auction house in New York, who quietly arranged the sale to a collector in Switzerland. For privacy, the final price wasn't publicly disclosed, but it was rumored to exceed $300,000. Within a month, the funds were transferred to Rebecca's account. She paid off her overdue bills, cleared her debts, and found a modest yet comfortable suburban house with a little yard for Lily and Marcus to play in. She set up a small college fund for each child. She even put some savings aside to pursue her dream of owning her own small bakery. Someday a dream she'd once considered impossible. Through it all, she remained cautious and discreet. Charles Harrington, having severed ties with his father, joined another law firm. He and Rebecca stayed in touch. He never asked for anything, though she insisted on paying him a fair fee for his legal work. Surprisingly, their friendship deepened over the months. The once intimidating attorney turned out to be a sincere ally, someone who sought redemption from his family's troubled legacy. Rebecca's final trip to Willow Creek was a sentimental one. She spent a weekend at the cottage, tidying it up and reminiscing. She wasn't ready to sell it yet. It felt like part of her family's new beginnings. On a cool Sunday morning, she strolled along the creek's edge, remembering Aunt Meredith's stern face and hidden warmth. The watery sunlight danced on the ripples, and for the first time in years, Rebecca felt at peace. She thanked her aunt silently for the second chance at life, for the letter that led her to a secret millionaire, for the inheritance that changed everything. Before locking up the cottage, she placed a single rose on the windowsill and whispered, "I owe you everything, Aunt Meredith. Thank you." Outside, the wind rustled through the tall grass. In that quiet rustle, Rebecca could almost hear her aunt's voice, carrying across time and memory, "May this inheritance ease your burdens." She smiled, a fresh wave of determination filling her. There would still be struggles ahead. Life was never simple, but she had forged a new path for herself and her children. No longer a victim of circumstance, she embraced the future, ready to live a life defined by hope, courage, and the unwavering love of family. And that, dear viewers, is the incredible story of how one struggling single mum's life changed forever the day she found a simple, mysterious letter. Rebecca Ward discovered a hidden fortune entwined with family secrets, powerful adversaries, and unexpected allies. Through her courage, resilience, and unwavering hope for a better future for her children, she triumphed against overwhelming odds. If this dramatic journey resonated with you, please show your support by liking this video. Share it with friends who might find inspiration in Rebecca's story of perseverance and unexpected miracles. Most importantly, subscribe to this channel for more fascinating real-life drama fiction. By doing so, you'll help keep stories like this alive, encouraging hope and transformation for those who need it most. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the biggest miracles can be hidden in the smallest clues.